Everyone in town knew Sarah as the quiet woman with tired eyes. She never made much noise. She didn't go out with friends or spend time at church events like she used to. She wore long sleeves even in the summer. And whenever someone asked her how she was doing, she'd smile quickly and say, "I'm fine," even if her voice shook just a little. But behind her small smile lived a life of silence, fear, and pain. Sarah had once been full of light. As a teenager, she loved to sing in the church choir. She used to laugh easily, her voice bright and full of joy. Her favorite place was the kitchen table with her parents, where they would read Bible verses together and pray before every meal. She dreamed of becoming a nurse, maybe starting a family one day. But more than anything, she dreamed of being loved deeply, gently. She met Mark when she was 23. He was charming, good-looking, and said all the right things. He brought her flowers, told her she was beautiful, and listened to her dreams. Sarah's friends warned her that something felt off about him, but she thought they were just being overprotective. After all, no one had ever looked at her the way Mark did. They married quickly. Less than 6 months after they met, Sarah was walking down the aisle in a white dress, holding her father's arm, her heart full of hope. She believed this was it, the life she prayed for. But things changed almost immediately after the wedding. The first time Mark yelled at her, it was over something small. She had forgotten to set out his favorite mug. He slammed it on the counter and called her careless. She was shocked, but told herself everyone gets angry sometimes. Then came the pushing, the threats, the days he wouldn't speak to her, followed by nights of forced apologies. He would blame her for his outbursts, say it was her fault he was angry, that if she just listened better, it wouldn't happen. Sarah tried to believe him. At first, she fought back. She cried. She said, "This isn't love." But the more she pushed, the more he pulled her down. And little by little, she began to shrink. She stopped singing, stopped smiling, stopped calling her parents. Mark didn't like her talking to anyone. He said they were trying to ruin their marriage. He took her phone, controlled the money, watched where she went. Soon, even her own thoughts didn't feel safe. Years passed like this. She felt trapped in a house that didn't feel like home. There were good days sometimes, days when Mark would say he was sorry, cook her favorite meal, or bring her a small gift. On those days, she would hope just a little that maybe things would change, that maybe the man she fell in love with was still in there somewhere. But the good days never lasted. Sarah prayed, quietly, often with tears on her pillow. She asked God why he let her stay in such a place. She wondered if maybe this was punishment for something, or maybe she wasn't strong enough to leave. The guilt, the fear, the shame, they all blended into one long, painful silence. She tried to leave once. She packed a small bag and went to her sister's house. But Mark found her. He begged her to come back, said he'd get counseling, promised he'd change. And when that didn't work, he threatened to hurt himself. So she returned, but the cycle continued. One night, after a loud argument, Sarah sat alone on the bathroom floor. The mirror showed a woman she didn't recognize. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were hollow, and her soul felt so tired. She opened the small Bible she kept hidden in a drawer, and it fell open to Psalm 34. Her eyes caught one verse, Psalm 34:18. "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." She read it again and again, and for the first time in years, something stirred inside her. Not hope exactly, but a small whisper, a reminder that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as alone as she thought. That night she prayed differently, not asking for escape, not begging for change. She simply whispered, "God, if you're still here, help me feel you." The next morning, she received a letter in the mail. It was from an old friend from church, someone she hadn't heard from in years. The note was short. It said, "You are on my heart. I don't know why, but I'm praying for you." Sarah cried holding that letter. It was small, but it felt like an answer. She didn't leave right away, but from that day on, she started making a plan, quietly, carefully. She began saving money in a hidden envelope under a floorboard. She called a women's shelter from a borrowed phone. She started journaling again, writing down every moment of pain, every bruise, every cruel word, because she knew one day she would need it. But more than anything, she kept going back to that psalm. She wrote it on the bathroom mirror. She whispered it when the fear crept in. She repeated it when she felt weak. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted. One night after Mark had gone to sleep, she grabbed the bag she had packed weeks earlier. She slipped out the door, heart pounding, hands shaking. She drove to the shelter, and for the first time in 7 years, she was free. It wasn't easy. Freedom never is. The shelter was small and crowded, but warm. The women there had stories like hers, different details, but the same pain. She wasn't judged, she was believed, and that changed everything. She began therapy. She joined a small Bible group for survivors. She started reading more Psalms, not just one verse, but all of them. Psalm 91 became her favorite. "He will cover you with his feathers, and under his wings you will find refuge." Sarah began to smile again. Not because her life was perfect, but because her soul was healing. She got a job at a local bookstore. The owner was kind and quiet and never asked too many questions. She started volunteering at a women's ministry, sharing pieces of her story. Carefully at first, but then more boldly. She didn't say his name. She didn't relive every detail. But she looked young women in the eyes and told them they were not alone, that they didn't deserve pain, that God wasn't silent, and that his word could become a lifeline in the dark. Over time, Sarah moved into her own small apartment. It was just one room and a kitchenette, but it was hers. She painted the walls a soft blue and placed her Bible on the nightstand, always open to Psalm 34. People began to notice the change in her. That soft glow was returning. She started singing again, just to herself at first, then in a church group. Then one day she stood in front of a small congregation and sang a song about God's faithfulness. Her voice cracked, but she kept singing. After the service, a teenage girl came up to her, tears in her eyes, and said, "You reminded me that I'm not broken beyond repair." Sarah hugged her tightly. That moment stayed with her for days, because now she understood something she never had before. Her pain hadn't been wasted. God had taken every broken piece and was making something beautiful from it, not by erasing her past, but by using it to help others find hope in their darkest moments. Years later, Sarah would speak at a women's conference. She stood behind a microphone, heart racing, but steady. She told her story, not as a victim, but as a survivor, a witness, a woman restored. She ended her talk with the verse that changed everything. "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." And as she looked out into the crowd, filled with women wiping their eyes, holding hands and nodding silently, she knew. She wasn't just free, she was whole. Sarah's story is not just about survival, it's about redemption. In her darkest hour, it wasn't loud sermons or fancy words that saved her. It was one quiet psalm, one whispered verse, one reminder that God never left her side. And maybe, just maybe, you needed to hear that today too.